Jason Richardson's solo album entitled I, or, well, One, if you like Roman numerals. And what a title for this. This is actually one that makes a lot of sense. It's his first solo record, for one, and for two, you know, whenever you think of solo, you think of just one man. You think of I, and that's essentially what you got here. So we have 11 tracks from the former member of Chelsea Grin and Born of Osiris, who is definitely aiming to make his own sort of gent symphony, I guess, a little bit with this, or just really his own vision of what his music is all about. And that's the best part about being a solo artist, is that really there's nobody else to really tell you what to do. You kind of can go by the beat of your own drum and let everything else sort of guide you. So, wow, there's also a lot of material to digest here. This is a largely instrumental album, sparse from a couple of moments where vocals do come in, thanks to a couple of helpers, and there are some guests that need to be discussed along the way. But let's really just dive right into this music a little bit, prior to getting into the plethora of excellent guests that he has on this album. Omni is the track that starts this thing off, and right away, that sort of idea of a gent symphony is what comes to my mind. It's almost like the overture, the prologue to it. This is what introduces you into the fold. And I also dig the fact that a lot of these tracks, in some way, shape, or form, sort of blend into one another a little bit. Really, what that showcases is that even though they're individual ideas, Jason and, you know, the folks that he was associated with in the making of this disc did a really good job whenever it came to getting this track listing together, getting this order together to make this whole thing not only make sense, but also feel like it is an ever-flowing stream, which definitely is a positive. With a mainly instrumental album, you sort of need a little something like that. You know, you divide in each individual idea with the actual body of your compositions, but whenever it comes to sort of linking them together a little bit, it gives it that feel of a long, simultaneous performance, something that's supposed to be done sequentially, even under the live banner, even if that's not necessarily what is truly necessary. It is something that on a studio release, seeing that flow from track 1 to 11 is always nice. And you have to really love what Jason is able to bring to the table with some of these earlier tracks. Principally because you're getting an introduction that Jason is a lot more than just what you got with Chelsea Grin and with Born of Osiris. Chelsea, or should I say Jason rather, was definitely a driving force behind some of the weird and strange ideas that perhaps took some of those albums that he was on with those two bands and transformed them into moderately good discs into great discs. There's just a lot of boundless creativity that seems to exist within his mind, and a lot of it bleeds out during this album. And it showcases also that the man is a creative powerhouse. Even if you just have him as a guest on your album, there's a very good chance that he's going to come across as not only individual, but he's also going to come across as somebody who's aiming to boost up your overall song and your overall product, as opposed to trying to steal the spotlight for that brief moment just for himself. And really, that's something that is proven with the guests that he has on this album, such as on Chapter 2, which features Jeff Loomis. You know, Jeff is a crafty veteran of more than 20 years. He's a man that no doubt needs no introduction, but the two of them flow so seamlessly with one another, it doesn't feel like anyone's attempting to upstage the other. It's instead two really great guitar players just trying to tell a story with their overall musical balance, whether it be with some of the, you know, delicate sweeping that you hear from Jason or some of Jeff's over-the-top heroics. It's certainly something that gives Chapter 2 a real 8-minute and 20-second long, just sort of, it's a wank fest. It's something where you just sit back and you just enjoy what you hear. The overall, you know, songwriting on this, the way in which, you know, one riff goes into another, how the sense is sort of, you know, crafted as it goes. It has a very freeform sort of, you know, spontaneous feel to it, but there's also a lot of calculation that is delivered along the same lines. And now Retrograde, which is track number 5 off of this disc, features our first element of vocals, which is from Spencer from Periphery. And this is something where, once again, that sort of dream machine that's in your head is already starting to no doubt go. You're already thinking to yourself, man, what would it be like if Jason Richardson was, even just for one album, a part of Periphery? Or what if there was a supergroup that was assembled that involved Spencer and, you know, let's say Jason Richardson and you know, maybe Mark from Periphery as well, maybe toss in a couple guys from Tesseract or this or that, you're already getting those dream lineups in your head by hearing this combination, because it's one that just exists so naturally, and one that definitely feels like it's right in the wheelhouse of possibility. And Retrograde is a fantastic song. You have to really continue to be impressed with Spencer's vocals, not only on this, but also on the most recent Periphery release that we talked about, link in the description below. Just really, he's having a very, very good year, and so is Periphery. Moving on to the next couple of tracks, Hose Down and Mirrors, which feature a twin billing of great guitar players, Rick Graham on Hose Down and Nick Johnson on Mirrors. Once again, similar to the Jeff Loomis track, it doesn't feel like anyone's trying to really outdo one another. They bring their individual skill sets and sweep and just, over the top their way through these songs, and they just provide this nice mid-tempo atmosphere. It's something that, where that speed and acceleration, that sort of speed metal comes in, it's something that's very well suited for the overall backbone that you get surrounding it, giving it a nice sense of purpose. Then you get into the amazing Thought 2.0. But before we do that, we have to mention Hose Down for just a moment, principally because of the just sort of Between the Buried and Me-esque just random moment. It's almost like Jason maybe watched an episode of The Dukes of Hazzard and just decided, let's throw that shit in there, that sounds pretty fucking funny. And he does, and it is really funny. It's a nice little break from, the over-the-top insanity that you get. It's still delivered with over-the-top insanity, don't get me wrong, but it's something that certainly sort of breaks the overall, vibe of seriousness a little bit. And then, of course, the Dream Machine for Me gets rolling. What if Jason was a guest on a song from Between the Buried and Me? And then the world explodes. But Thought 2.0, which is more than 9 minutes in length, in fact, it's treading closer to the 10-minute range, is basically a combination of all of his skills thrust together into one song. There are softer passages, there are more melodic sides to this, there is absolute speed insanity, there is gent and mute, there's just anything that you have previously heard Jason sort of have an approach toward, you're going to get with this song, and then he's going to toss in a couple of brand new tricks along the way to showcase that he's a guitarist that is constantly evolving. And that, I think, is one of the reasons why he will always kind of feel a little bit like, it's a weird thing to describe, but always like he's advancing whenever perhaps other members of a band are willing to sort of stick around the same level. It seems like he's always developing something brand new, which should be a real positive to a band. But here we are. The last two tracks on this album feature a couple of other, real big guest names, such as Lucas Magyar from Veil of Maya, as well as Mark Holcomb from Periphery on Fragments. And this is one where those vocals, I have to praise Lucas for this. This is a great performance as well. Wow, I mean, it's one that showcases all the things that make Veil of Maya a group where a lot of people really like him. I like his cleans on this a lot. I think that they don't come off as too, nasally. It instead just has that nice mid-range register, and whenever he soars, it's closer to Spencer than it is to, say, Falling in Reverse. Speaking of Falling in Reverse, our very final track, Breaking Damnation, features Jackie Vincent, who is formerly in Falling in Reverse, quite the guitarist by his own right whenever he's, given the opportunity. This 6-minute shred fest closes out the album and gives it a nice farewell. Wow, okay, that was a lot to digest, I know, and for an instrumental record, that's definitely saying something. Instrumental records do actually take a lot of digestion in order to get it all in. It's actually one that may require more than a purely lyrical-based album that has music that surrounds it simply because of the element that you're speaking of. Sometimes instruments are able to speak the language that we can't express, but universally understand. And Jason, I think, was really able to tap into that language along with his guests on this record. It just has a very forward-thinking feeling to it and associated with it whenever you listen to this. Some may say that it just sort of borrows a lot of the gentisms of the age and adds them on to just arpeggio, sweep picking, and just wonderful overall flow. But this is also an album that is more of a snapshot of the man himself, showcasing how his growth and evolution continues to sort of manifest before our eyes, and that it's never going to be complete because he's always going to discover something new that he didn't know yesterday. And that's something to be appreciative of. that's something where whenever it comes to solo records or whatever projects that Jason's associated with in the future, you have a lot to be excited for, because it's always going to be something a little different with him. It's not going to be derivative, and it's not going to be easy to spot at all times. Overall, terrific disc, man. This is an 11-track album that you're just sort of hooked on. You're glued by it. And, it's not just based off of the skill that is really present on this disc, though that is certainly a help. But it's also in some of the creative compositioning that occurs here. For a first effort, damn, you have to give the guy a lot of credit. 86 out of 100 on this. Do recommend this. If you like Animals as leaders and different instrumental artists that really like to explore some of the different sides of their sound, certainly give this a listen. And I'm excited to see if Jason on future solo releases aims to even expand that catalog even further and really do some real exploration of pace and tone and speed. There's still more that could be done. What did you think about this, though? We even got a chance to listen to it. Did you know it dropped? It dropped. It's here. You should listen to it. Let me know in the comments below your opinion about Jason Richardson's first solo album, whether you call it I or whether you call it One. I'm coverkillernation, and I'll talk to you guys next time. We still have a lot to talk about this week, so stay tuned.